That familiar squeeze on the arm, the silent hum of the machine, followed by a moment of held breath. For millions, this daily ritual ends in frustration. The numbers on the blood pressure cuff remain stubbornly high, a silent testament to a battle that feels impossible to win. One diligently hides the salt shaker, scrutinizes every food label, and follows the advice given for decades. And yet, the pressure persists. That morning stiffness, that subtle headache, that feeling of internal tension isn't just in one's head. But what if the relentless focus on the salt shaker has been a clever, if unintentional, distraction from a far more fundamental truth? What if the key to relaxing that inner tension lies not in what is removed from the diet, but in what has been forgotten? A forgotten mineral duo, not stretching or salt restriction, could be the key to unlocking arterial freedom from within. This changes everything. For generations, the narrative has been simple. Sodium causes water retention, which increases blood volume, which in turn raises pressure against the walls of the arteries. This is a piece of the puzzle, an undeniable factor in the equation of cardiovascular health. Yet it is an incomplete picture, and focusing on this single piece can obscure the view of the entire masterpiece of human physiology. The body is not a simple plumbing system. It is a dynamic, electrically charged environment of exquisite balances, of push and pull, of tension and release. Imagine a garden hose left out in the sun for years. It becomes stiff, brittle, and unyielding. To push the same amount of water through it requires a significant increase in pressure from the spigot. Now imagine a brand new, flexible hose. It expands easily to accommodate the flow of water, requiring far less force. The arteries, the vital pipelines that carry life-giving blood to every cell in the body, behave in much the same way. Their ability to expand and contract in response to the heart's rhythm is known as vascular compliance. When this flexibility is lost, the heart is forced to work much harder, pumping against a rigid, unyielding system. This is the very essence of high blood pressure. The pressure is a symptom of stiffening vessels. Therefore, the most profound question one can ask is not simply, how does one lower blood volume, but rather, how does one restore the natural, youthful flexibility to the arteries themselves? The answer lies in the microscopic world of cellular biology, in the delicate dance of minerals that govern every muscle contraction in the body, including the tiny smooth muscles that line the arterial walls. So, if salt is only a fraction of the story, what controls the very suppleness of these vital pipelines? The answer is not a drug, nor a complex medical procedure. It is a silent partnership between two elements one might find in a simple handful of almonds, a partnership that holds the power to tell the arteries to simply relax. The first hero of this story is a mineral involved in over 300 biochemical reactions in the body, yet it is one of the most common deficiencies in the modern Western diet. This mineral is magnesium. Its role in cardiovascular health is both elegant and profound. Think of it as the great relaxer. Within the smooth muscle cells of the arterial walls are tiny gateways known as calcium channels. When the mineral calcium rushes into these cells, it acts as a trigger, telling the muscle to contract and tense up. This is a necessary function for many bodily processes, but when it is persistent and unregulated within the arteries, it leads to a chronic state of constriction. The vessels become tight and narrow. The pressure builds. Magnesium serves as nature's own calcium channel blocker. It sits on the outside of that cellular gateway, acting as a gatekeeper. By physically occupying that space, it prevents an excessive flood of calcium from entering the cell. It doesn't stop the process entirely, but it modulates it, ensuring that the contraction is balanced by an equal and opposite state of relaxation. The result is a profound release of tension along the entire vascular system. The smooth muscles lining the tens of thousands of miles of arteries and veins are allowed to soften, to yield. They regain their natural elasticity. This allows the vessels to widen, a process known as vasodilation, creating more space for the blood to flow. The pressure drops, not because fluid has been artificially forced out of the system, but because the system itself has become more accommodating. It is a fundamental solution, addressing the cause rather than chasing the symptom. Tension dissolves. Consider this. Estimates from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey suggest that nearly half, almost 50%, of the adult population in the United States consumes less than the required amount of this crucial mineral. Could millions be fighting a pressure battle with one hand tied behind their back, completely unaware of their own physiological disadvantage? But magnesium, for all its power, does not work alone. It has a partner, a mineral equally common and equally misunderstood. This second hero is potassium. For decades, potassium has lived in the shadow of its notorious counterpart, sodium. The advice was always about less sodium, but this ignored the critical relationship between the two. They are two sides of the same coin, locked in an eternal biological dance. Inside every cell of the body exists a mechanism known as the sodium-potassium pump. This microscopic marvel works tirelessly, pumping 3 sodium ions out of the cell for every 2 potassium ions it pulls in. This process is fundamental to life itself. It maintains the electrical charge across our cell membranes, enabling nerve impulses and muscle contractions. When potassium levels in the diet are adequate, this pump works efficiently. Crucially, this affects the kidneys, the master regulators of the body's fluid balance. Sufficient potassium signals the kidneys to excrete excess sodium through urine. It is the body's natural, built-in mechanism for preventing sodium buildup. The problem, therefore, is often not just an excess of sodium, but a deficiency of potassium. Without enough potassium, the body clings to sodium, and where sodium goes, water follows. This imbalance directly contributes to the increased blood volume that the old, incomplete model of high blood pressure was based on. By simply ensuring an adequate intake of potassium, one provides the body with the tools it needs to regulate itself. It's not about fighting the body, but about restoring its natural, harmonious equilibrium. The focus shifts from sodium avoidance to potassium sufficiency. But what happens when these two minerals are combined? When a diet is rich in both magnesium and potassium, the effect is not merely additive. It becomes powerfully synergistic. Yet, there is a hidden danger. A common dietary habit, one that many consider perfectly healthy, can actively strip these minerals from the body, rendering even supplementation useless. What is this hidden saboteur lurking in one's daily routine? The synergy between magnesium and potassium is a cornerstone of cellular health. Magnesium is actually required to help the sodium-potassium pumps function correctly. Furthermore, the kidneys need sufficient magnesium to be able to retain potassium. If one is magnesium deficient, the body may simply excrete any extra potassium that is consumed, a condition which can be incredibly frustrating for those trying to correct an imbalance. They work as a team. Magnesium keeps the arteries relaxed and open, while potassium helps the body manage sodium levels and fluid balance. Together, they form a two-pronged approach to blood pressure management that is built into our very biology. One mineral addresses the flexibility of the pipes, while the other addresses the volume of the fluid running through them. It is an elegant and complete system. This brings us to the saboteur. It is a paradox of modern medicine. For many individuals diagnosed with high blood pressure, one of the first lines of treatment is a prescription for a diuretic. These medications, often called water pills, work by causing the kidneys to remove more sodium and water from the body, which lowers blood volume and, consequently, blood pressure. On the surface, this seems logical. However, many common diuretics are not selective. As they flush out sodium and water, they also cause a significant loss of both potassium and magnesium through the urine. This is a well-documented side effect. This creates a dangerous feedback loop. The very condition, high blood pressure, is often linked to an underlying deficiency of these two minerals. The treatment then proceeds to deplete the body's stores of these same essential minerals even further. This can lead to a state where the medication becomes less effective over time, or worse, creates other issues related to mineral deficiencies, such as muscle cramps, fatigue, or irregular heartbeats. This creates a cycle where the treatment may inadvertently worsen the underlying mineral imbalance that contributes to the problem in the first place. So how does one break this cycle without going against critical medical advice? The solution lies not in abandoning treatment, but in a specific dietary strategy that replenishes these minerals safely and effectively, working with the body, not against it. The primary principle is to obtain these nutrients from whole foods, where they exist in a natural matrix with other cofactors and phytonutrients that aid in their absorption and utilization. While supplements can play a role, a food-first approach is often gentler and more holistic for the body. The goal is to create a diet so rich in these elements that the body is constantly supplied with the resources it needs to maintain its own vascular health. Foods that are champions of this mineral duo are often simple and readily available. Dark leafy greens like spinach and Swiss chard are phenomenal sources of both magnesium and potassium. They are nature's multivitamin for the cardiovascular system. Avocados are another powerhouse, loaded with potassium and a good amount of magnesium, alongside healthy monounsaturated fats. Nuts and seeds, particularly almonds, cashews, and pumpkin seeds are incredibly dense in magnesium. A small handful can provide a significant portion of the daily requirement. For potassium, one can look to foods like bananas, sweet potatoes, and white beans. The key is variety and consistency. Building meals around these ingredients shifts the entire dietary landscape from one of restriction to one of abundance. It is about intentionally adding these life-giving foods, crowding out the highly processed, mineral-stripped products that dominate the modern food supply. This proactive nourishment supports the body's innate wisdom. But beyond these individual foods, certain combinations can be particularly powerful. Researchers have identified one particular ancient grain, often overlooked in the modern grocery store, that contains a near-perfect physiological ratio of these two arterial relaxants. It works in a way that is almost tailor-made for our circulatory system. That grain is buckwheat. While technically a seed, buckwheat is consumed as a grain, and it packs an incredible 1-2 punch of both magnesium and potassium in a highly bioavailable form. But here is where our journey takes an unexpected and far more critical turn. What if I told you that focusing on just magnesium and potassium, this powerful duo, is still missing 1/3 of the equation? What if there is a third, non-mineral player in this game, a master key, that unlocks the full potential of the other two, and without which we are only ever operating at partial capacity? What is this forgotten element, and why is its absence the real reason so many people fail to correct their mineral imbalances, no matter how much spinach or how many supplements they take? This third element is not a mineral or a vitamin. It is a specific amino acid called taurine. While technically a non-essential amino acid, meaning our bodies can produce it, research is increasingly showing that our ability to produce enough taurine under the stress of modern life is severely compromised, and its role in cardiovascular health is nothing short of revolutionary. Taurine acts as a cellular chaperone for magnesium and potassium. Think of it as the gatekeeper for your cells. It helps to drive and, more importantly, hold both magnesium and potassium inside the cells where they are needed most, particularly in the cells of the heart, the blood vessels, and the muscles. This is the missing link. You can consume all the potassium-rich foods in the world, but if your cells are leaky due to low taurine, that potassium can't stay where it needs to be to do its job. It gets flushed out. The same goes for magnesium. Taurine essentially seals the container, allowing the powerful synergy of the other two minerals to reach its full expression. This is the true trinity of vascular health: magnesium, the relaxer; potassium, the balancer; and taurine, the retainer. So where do we find this critical amino acid? This is where a major blind spot in many healthy diets is revealed. The most concentrated food sources of taurine are not in the plant kingdom. They are almost exclusively found in animal products. Scallops, mussels, and other shellfish are at the top of the list. Dark meat from turkey and chicken are excellent sources, as are certain types of fish like tuna and cod. This explains why a diet that relies solely on plants, while rich in many nutrients, can inadvertently create a deficiency in this key mineral-retaining compound, potentially limiting the benefits of the very magnesium and potassium it provides. This isn't a judgment on any particular dietary choice, but a revelation of a hidden biochemical need. The body's ability to synthesize taurine from other amino acids can be inhibited by aging, certain health conditions, and even deficiencies in other nutrients like vitamin B6. Relying on internal production alone is a gamble many people are losing without even knowing they're at the table. This uncovers a deeper, more insidious cycle. Low taurine leads to poor intracellular magnesium and potassium. This mineral imbalance contributes to stiff arteries and high blood pressure. The stress of this condition on the body then further increases the demand for taurine, depleting it even faster. It's a downward spiral, hidden at the molecular level. But how does one integrate this knowledge? And are there any non-animal sources that can help? The strategy involves a two-pronged attack. But before we even touch on sources, we must address the saboteur. What if the ultimate culprit isn't what's missing, but what's in excess? What if a nutrient, hailed as a pillar of health, is secretly waging war on this trinity? What if this rogue element is actively kicking magnesium out of your cells and turning your flexible blood vessels into rigid pipes? That rogue element, the nutrient that can turn from friend to foe, is calcium. Not the calcium you get from a balanced diet of whole foods, but the isolated, highly concentrated calcium from supplements and overly fortified foods. In the absence of its cofactors, excess calcium becomes a bully. It competes directly with magnesium for absorption and for entry into your cells, often winning the battle and pushing the vital relaxing mineral out. This is the very mechanism behind arterial calcification, the hardening of the arteries. It's a silent, insidious process where your flexible vascular highways turn into brittle, chalky pipes. You could be taking all the magnesium in the world, but if a tidal wave of unmanaged calcium is working against you, it's like trying to paddle upstream in a hurricane. This isn't about villainizing calcium. It's about understanding its place in the symphony. Calcium is the brick, but you need the masons to tell it where to go. So who is the master mason in this story? Who directs calcium into our bones and teeth where it belongs, and keeps it out of our soft tissues and arteries where it causes damage? This introduces the final piece of our puzzle, a fat-soluble vitamin. Vitamin K2. Not K1, found in leafy greens, but K2, found in fermented foods like natto, certain cheeses like Gouda and Brie, and the organs and fats of grass-fed animals. Vitamin K2 activates proteins that act like traffic cops for calcium. It tells the calcium to go into the bone, strengthening your skeleton, and strictly prohibits it from loitering in your arteries. Without enough K2, calcium is flying blind, causing chaos in your cardiovascular system. Here then is the complete picture. Magnesium the relaxer, potassium the balancer, taurine the retainer, and vitamin K2 the director. Together, they manage calcium, transforming it from a potential threat into a powerful ally. This is the body's innate wisdom revealed. It's not about finding one magic bullet, but about restoring a forgotten synergy. It's a shift from chasing symptoms to rebuilding the system from the ground up. By focusing on this powerful quintet through foods like buckwheat, shellfish, dark poultry, natto, and leafy greens, we aren't just lowering a number on a blood pressure cuff. We are restoring the fundamental electrical and structural integrity of our entire circulatory system. The story of your health is not written in a prescription pad. It's written in the language of nutrients, a language your body is desperate to speak. The path to better health isn't about deprivation. It's about intelligent nourishment. It's about understanding these hidden connections that govern your vitality. We've only just scratched the surface. The same principles of nutrient synergy apply to brain health, immune function, and metabolic efficiency. If you are ready to stop treating the symptoms and start understanding the system, to move beyond the headlines and dive into the real science of well-being, then your journey starts here. Join our community. Subscribe to Better_Health, and together, let's rediscover the blueprint for a vibrant life.